Hello, trading is closed on June 1st, 2023. As always, we'll start with our disclaimer, go over our calls, and then make some predictions. This is my trading plan for Friday, which is the 2nd of June, 2023. Please remember, my calls can be completely wrong. Any trade you make should be at your own risk. Look for the pattern with the early high, which is this, and tomorrow should also have the early high. Tends to be a rally day with a high in the final hour. That's what this is, but it's a weak pattern because the final hour close typically is near the high of day. Time doesn't run out until early tomorrow. We gap either direction, take out this high fast. All is right with the world, but if we can't do that, this usually leads to further weakness. Now we had some targets which did print. We get 41.75.22 and optionally 41.75.70. There was also an ultimate target I missed, but someone who was more alert than I was able to point out that 41.70.60 was a valid ultimate target. All those numbers printed, and there was support under the target. I mentioned yesterday it was possible that we could hit these targets and then rally, but mentioning mentioning something is possible and actually calling it, that's not the same thing. We had signals that were mixed. The commonest thing is a gap and prop move outside the range. That didn't happen. Next most common is a close little change, big move next day. That didn't happen. So today was one of those uncommon things where neither one of those things happened. During the day, MEJT said this whole thing is not for real, that we're going to retrace, gives us a target of 4185.43, and if we don't gap up smartly, that's my call. MEJT did say this drop wasn't going to stick, said this rally wasn't going to stick, and that's already played out. We still are trading no more than one full trading day bar over DeMarc's TDST line. This is a TDST line from way back in July of 2021, still offering resistance. Now this is a major league trend line. You just ignore the actual high and connect these two highs, and we hit it on the nose. That's a major trend line. So either you gap over the trend line or the trend line wins. Now we're looking for wave black 2 to complete. Somewhere we have to find the end of blue B, then get your blue C, and then hope the count's right, which would put us in black 3. So we have to find some way to count this, and that's not so easy. Well, I had this count and I modified it, but I couldn't get black C and black A to have a good fib relationship. They don't have to, but if they don't have one, I tend to look for something else. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I tried to modify it and could get things to work. There's your A, there's your B, and there's your C. All the fibs work, but sure looks like a forced count to me. I mean, that's not where I want to see B. So I was able to come up with something else, but that doesn't mean it's right. I went back to the original count I had. We started from the high in May and we got A. Then we had B and C, and that gives us blue A. Those all worked. Now we have an A and a B, and the fibs work perfectly to give us blue B. And if you look at just the last waves up on a smaller time frame, you can count your A, your B, and your C for A. You have this ABC, which looks a bit forced, I admit. But then C has a good fib relationship to A. You can count 5 waves up and everything works. So this puts wave C starting where I'd want it to start. C and A have a good fib ratio. And if a B wave looks a bit funny, it's one of the rules a friend of mine taught me was B waves can go anywhere. So even though it looks a bit funny, it doesn't mean it's wrong and the fibs all work. Well, tomorrow's pattern has the early high. Doesn't mean you won't gap down. The monthly job report comes out tomorrow. I can't predict responses to major economic reports with consistency. I mean, for all I know, we'll gap up 30 points, but could go down 30 points. I just can't predict responses to this report. So I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. And we'll say, that being said, bulls need to gap and promptly overtake today's high. And we should see lower prices tomorrow, regardless of how we close. We have a lower MEJT target. Lest we gap up smartly, the rules call for it to print by early Monday. The waves balance at the high today, and there's trend line resistance there too. Failure of today's pattern to close near the highs also is negative. Overtaking the high early tomorrow kills the signal. But otherwise, we rallied all day and couldn't even hold on to midday highs at the close in a pattern which usually closes in the stratosphere. And that's not good if it's maintained. If it's not maintained, then all is forgiven. We open up here, we can keep going up. But if that doesn't happen, I'm looking for lower prices and possibly, quite possibly, the end of this wave blue B. So we'll have to see how we open. It's the pattern with the early high. This is a weak action. It's weak. Either we gap up, take this out, or gap either direction, take this out, or else I think we're going to drop. And my target is 41.85.43. Don't forget, I've not given up on this 41.05.24. If we have weakness tomorrow, I'm not saying this number is going to print tomorrow. That would be a stretch even for me. But if we do start down, I think it certainly could be the start of a down leg, and that number would be in play. And that is today's call.